Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, wherever you are in the world, and welcome. Welcome to the Infinite Way podcast, where spirituality meets humanity. My name is Dr. Enolia, and it brings me great pleasure to introduce to you two beautiful entrepreneurs that are focused on film. So, to tell you a little bit about MsPearl Productions, a woman-led production company founded by Keresey and Briana Pond, excels in creating authentic and artistically captivating visual stories. Both passionate about filmmaking from a young age, Keresey and Briana bring a wealth of experience and in storytelling, communication, and media production. Keresey, with the background in documentaries and broadcast journalism, has traveled the world capturing human interest stories, while Briana expertise ensures each project meets the highest standards of quality, and together they specialize in event promotion, weddings, music videos, and brand videos, transforming diverse narratives into emotionally engaging films. Their mutual commitment to integrity, creativity, and meaningful impact makes MsPearl Productions a platform where visions are realized and voices are amplified. So I welcome Briana and Keresey. Welcome to the Infinite Way.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us on the show.
I'm so glad to have you here. So, what is it that led you to filmmaking? What is it? What was the stir? What was the story behind the story of leading you to wanting to capture situations, people on film?
You want me to start?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, filmmaking has been something that I've been intrigued by since I was really little. And, I think when all of us are children and trying to decide what we want to do with our lives, and, media does have such a presence in our life, especially here in the Western world. And, understanding the way the story is told. I believe I've always been a storyteller at heart. And it was through a series of events in my mid to late teens that led me to decide to go into filmmaking and actually study it in college. Got my degree in broadcast journalism and then pursued independent films and documentaries, and just kind of found my path through being around artists and other creative minds that like to use visual storytelling.
Yeah, and I'm a little bit more of the artist approach. I wanted to be an actress in my late teens and went out to LA to do that, and wound up getting a whole other path with permaculture and off-grid living. And I've been in the fine arts my whole life as well. And I feel like filmmaking can kind of bridge all of my artistry and also helping people get their stories out to the world. I really love being of service, and I really feel like it's such a powerful tool to be able to not only market brands and businesses, but to get people that have beautiful stories and beautiful gifts for the world to see.
Storytelling is something that's really important. You know, when I sit here and I look at Africa, so here I am in Africa, and they have an oral history. So you don't even recognize the history unless it's told from one generation to another generation. And filmmaking really captures that. Tell us, and Briana, we could start with you. Tell us about the first story that captivated you, that you captured on film.
That I captured on film. Well, actually,
Yeah.
I would say something that has stuck with me my entire life. When I was 17 years old, a film that I saw that inspired me. I think it's more important than what I've ever captured. It was of a woman who was also, I think, 20 years old, and she went over to Africa and she came across a young child in the forest, and she ended up befriending this child, and the child took her deep into the jungle. It was like a 3-day journey into the jungle, and she found a whole community. And she went there with a media team and ended up being able to create a school that I think had 300 kids in it. Funded all this money, and it was through media. And I was like, oh, that's what I want to be doing. I want to be not only an actress, because I've been interested in it, but instead of for fame and working with Hollywood, I want to be able to use my voice and character. And I'm a natural storyteller. I love to tell stories. I've traveled the world and gotten myself into all sorts of wild situations that a lot of people would probably call fantasy. But yeah, that really inspired me to want to get behind a camera and also in front of one.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
In Keresey?
Oh, what's one that I've captured? I've been inspired by so many stories over the years, and films definitely have had a massive impact in my life. It's pretty magical, and we talk about this all the time, that it's literally through light and sound we can influence a person's consciousness, and to think about how we've ourselves have been influenced. And I believe I knew that early on, and having such a positive heart and wanting to use my superpowers for good in the world. After getting into news and seeing kind of what mainstream news was all about, I worked at a big station in Boston, more corporate, and I saw that that wasn't the route that I wanted to do. I saw that I was a lot of fear that I was instilling in people. It was instilling a lot of fear in me to capture the stories and then to be working on them all day long. And so I saw that I wanted to pursue this medium still, just, sharing stories that would inspire and uplift people. And so pretty directly after, and it was actually in correlation with working in news, I was also working on a really impactful documentary about Hurricane Katrina. And that was one of the first really impactful films that I was able to work on as an assistant editor. And I logged and captured, which anybody in the film industry knows, logging and capturing footage takes so much time. And I think it was like 180 hours worth of footage. It was an incredible amount. And so I got to hear a lot of the stories from the people that had been boots on the ground there. These two incredible filmmakers that I had the opportunity to work with that were veterans in the field really took me under their wing and showed me a lot of the storytelling and just the humanity behind how we can use this medium to showcase stories that are really meaningful, and how we can use it also to shift consciousness and to shift the culture. And yeah, and then after that, I was able to work on a lot of different projects. Actually, when I was in college, let me backtrack a few years, I was able to go to Kenya. And that was my very first documentary I ever worked on, was in Kenya. So I feel like I've been super blessed with all the stories I've been able to be a part of, and how I've been able to work in this field.
It's beautiful. So, we talk about stories in general, but there's always one that inspires you the most. What have you found that has really truly inspired you to really say, okay, this is it. I have to always do documentaries, because documentaries are a special genre. They inspire, they're heartfelt, they're compassionate. Sometimes they tug on our heartstrings so hard because we have their activism. There's so many different aspects and so many facets to documentaries. Which ones have inspired you? And I know that I saw some of your work, which is phenomenal, especially back when I believe it was a documentary you did on the pipeline. I remember that one, the pipeline, when you were down in the Native Nations and the indigenous, and being with them and hearing the stories of what it took for them to stand up and to stand in their truth about not wanting the pipeline to go through. So that's just what comes up to the top of my head. What comes to mind for you two? Keresey, do you want to go first?
Sure, thank you. And yeah, thanks for that recollection. That was right around when we met when I came to California. I think
Right.
very closely after that. That was a big time in our country. And I would say, you know, it's challenging as I haven't yet had the opportunity to work on a feature, like a narrative, what we would consider like a true Hollywood type film. And so I don't know if that one, how I would feel about that. I've always been intrigued by those. And I think it's a little bit of a blend of both. I think there's something too, and this is actually a trend that we're looking at right now is Social Dilemma did it really well, which is a blend between narrative and documentary. And I think that's something we've talked about exploring more in our filmmaking is how to weave in because our world has become so media driven that it's almost like documentaries are narratives and vice versa. And so I think, yes, absolutely, being able to work on the documentaries that I've been able to work on and that we've been able to work on over the years, and a lot of the human interest stories and understanding social behavior change that we can do through these films. And also recognizing just how much people just love a good story and how a good story lights us up and motivates us. And that's really the conversation we're more in, is a positive approach. I was definitely more of what you'd consider an activist in my early to late 20s, using my filmmaking to like, not necessarily fight, but push things. And then I got to a point where I was looking at the impact of that on myself, on my health. Burnout is very high on filmmakers, especially in that field. And, really seeing what is my end goal? What do I want to be doing with my filmmaking? And am I achieving that through the current path that I'm doing? And so I feel like it's a constant morphing. And so I know I'm sort of dancing around your question a little bit. Because, I heard something years ago where an artist said, my favorite project is the one I haven't created yet. And I really, I think we both ascribe to that. Like, we're always growing, we're always getting better. And, we just did this really big project in Dallas with this amazing women's real estate investor network. We really love them. They're a fabulous group that we've had the pleasure of working with, and we're going to continue that relationship. And it was so much fun. And then after the event, we're already in conversations on how to make the next one better. And that's really, I think, where I come from, and that's where our values align and where we come from and how we want to tell stories. So I hope that sort of answers the question.
You get to answer it any way that you want.
I know, I'm trying to sit here and think, when you're like, what's your favorite artist? And you can't think of an artist to say. And I'm like, I love watching movies. I love watching documentaries. And honestly, I'm a believer also that, we a lot of our life is run by the subconscious. And so it's these patterns and different things that we've gained over years. And something that's so powerful about media is that light and sound, you can take it in and it can create memories, which then can create emotions, and it can rewire you in a way. And so that can lead to inspiration. That can lead to the spectrum of things. It can be used for the good and a more darker side as well. And the movie 13th, I think it's called 13th, about the 13th Amendment, that documentary really stuck with me. I think about it a lot. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's all about the 13th Amendment and slavery, and how, even though it seemed like slavery ended, it really talked about how our prison systems and jail systems kind of just morphed into what the old day slavery was. And so, yeah, that really brought awareness to my mind that I had never really thought about when it came to, African Americans in this country. So that was super powerful to me. I think it's called The Secret Life of Water. That one really woke me up because I'm really interested in water and the power, the consciousness of water. And there's an amazing scientist that studied water for 40 years. at a molecular level, and really shows how just using our own voice, you can change the constitution of water and the benefits that it has on our health and the planet. So that's definitely one of my backbones of if I want someone to be inspired by a documentary.
So that would be Dr. Masaru Emoto, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Just checking. So you bring up some beautiful, beautiful points in the respect that when you talk about light and sound and consciousness, I know that there is, because you're both very spiritual, that there is a there's a how do I explain it? There's a mood that comes over. There's a feeling that I get. There's a channeling that takes place when I'm writing,
Mhm.
right? And I transcend doing the act of writing, of like trying to think of words to put down on a piece of paper, to the words are flowing to me and passing through me, and they are just coming to the page, and I'm just recording that which I already see. And it's like being in the zone. It's like when baseball players say they're in the zone, right? They don't have to figure out the act of this is the mechanics of what I have to do to pitch a ball, but
Mhm.
that the flow is there, and that, you know, the ball's already been thrown and they're just recreating the act of what's already taken place sometimes. So, is there something like that in filmmaking? Is there a point when you're either filming or when you're editing or when you're in any of that process that comes through for you?
Oh,
Brianna?
absolutely. I mean, like I said, I started as an artist. I've been drawing and um, I mean, I ceramics. I do all sorts of stuff with art, and that's the only way I think art can be enjoyable is when you tap into that channel. So when we're storyboarding or designing anything or even filming with people, because a lot of people, once you put a camera in front of them, they could have a great story and then they freeze. And it's really our energy when, you know, tap into us, and we can be help get them into that flow, get them into that channel so that they can really express the story that's inside. So I don't know what it is about the lens that once it comes on, people are like, oh. It's something you gotta train out of. I'm not sure what it is.
No, it's a machine. So
Mhm.
there's something that, I've always likened to people. I say I'm a transformer. So just think of the camera as an extension of me. And so when you're, kind of with the camera, it humanizes it a little bit. Because I think that's also, an aspect of what we enjoy bringing is really that like warmth to the work, that can otherwise, we're working with a lot of technology, which can lack that. And so how to bring that human essence to the virtual world and digital world is important. In regards to flow, absolutely, I agree with Bree that it's one of the biggest things about the process. I've said this for years and I still stand by this. The end product is fun to deliver, whether it's a film or a brand video or a beautiful wedding video or name it, any of the things that we have the opportunity to work with people on. It's fun to be like, hey, this is the end product. Look at this. It turned out really beautiful, like a book of yours. And it's always the process that is the most fun. It's the collaboration. It's the all the minds at work. It's the we ran into this challenge, and working through that challenge together, especially because filmmaking is such a collaborative art form. I think it's one of the most collaborative art forms. So we really have to understand how to communicate with one another, communicating shared visions, and being able to achieve and kind of meet within a shared vision and reach that end goal together and kind of keep our eye on the prize in that sense. And also when we're dealing with big personalities, which we're big personalities, both Briana and myself, and then we're working with big personalities. And so how to work with that and say, okay, well, your idea and how do we, kind of make them all make sense, is to be connected to that one spirit and to recognize we're all serving something, like you said, that actually wants to come through us. And when we can listen to that then it becomes really fun.
It does, it really does. And how do you deal with it when it's not? There are going to be times when you have a client and that client basically has a really, really big ego. And then you're sitting there going, oh my goodness, what did I get myself into? I didn't catch the ego beforehand. And you have to have that shared vision. And their vision that they're trying to impose is not the vision that flows. It's not the vision that allows you to truly extract the story that you're trying to bring to fruition. And this makes a huge difference in filmmaking. If you have a very adversarial personality that you're trying to get into flow, how does that work? What do you do?
Well, one thing that we actually came together on, the community brought us together on, is our ability to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
So I that's my number one tool, is how can I communicate with my client, and also researching before and being very clear. We are really devoted to not taking on clients where we don't match values. Our value system is huge. So the message that we're putting across, if it has our name on it, we have to be aligned with it 100%. And if that's going to change, then we'll be communicating to not support it, basically. And that can be hard in the film industry because, a lot of media out there we don't really align with. And so, yeah, I think it's just being really clear from the get-go about what are we trying to accomplish here. We definitely have met egos throughout, and we kind of honestly just laugh at it because it just reminds us that we are human. People do have egos, and we're like, okay, you want to look a little bit more tough or something like that. Like, we got tools to make you look a little bit more tough and make your life a little bit better today. But if it's like something like that, that's minor.
Yeah, that's pretty simple. I think I agree with Bree. It does all come down to communication, and we're very graceful, or we attempt to be. If we have a disagreement with where a vision is going, and this does happen, in the film business, there's the movie you write, the movie you shoot, and the movie you edit, and they're often 3 different films. And so if at any point in that process we reach a point where there's like Bree is saying, a breakdown in values or vision, if somebody has put on a really good front and we start to see that facade cracking a little bit, and we then, it's our responsibility. And this is, we've had a lot of these projects where, and we've worked with a lot of really amazing clients, and I think it's like Bree said, there's an understanding of the human spirit in there. And so we approach it as such, that, okay, the spirit is still growing. And so how can we communicate as clearly that we're not in alignment anymore to continue in this way? And if we were, something would have to shift, and we communicate what that is. And then if it's not, then we gracefully exit.
Which honestly, thankfully, that rarely happens. And I can't even think of a time that we've ever had to disconnect from a project. I'm thankful that what we've attracted thus far has been extremely positive and fun to work on. And yeah, that's normally what it is.
Yeah.
Definitely blessed and very fortunate, because I have heard the stories of women who have done film production, and then the client then shows that pulls the facade down and shows their true colors. And it has gotten ugly sometimes. But that leads me to ask you, women in filmmaking, just in general, why is it harder for us? What is the difference between our male counterparts in filmmaking versus ourselves? And what do you find yourself having to mire through as a woman in filmmaking?
Well, what's interesting is women actually started like Hollywood in back in the day. I think when was it? In the
30s and 20s and 30s. It was mostly female directors.
Oh, wow.
A lot of people don't know that. There's a book that we have that I was gifted a couple of years ago, and it's Hollywood, Her Story. And this is part of what's been wiped, is the history, the herstory behind actual filmmaking. And to Bree's point, it was when the banking institutions came in and they found filmmaking to be profitable. then they pushed the women out and put men in the positions. And there became less and less female directors during that time, and to a point where women could only get the roles of actresses or something that had less influence and less power. And what we're noticing, and this is actually something we've written about on our blog, we really are seeing a massive shift going back to that, like the Reese Witherspoons, the Gina Davises, there's so many, Natalie Portman, Drew Barrymore, really phenomenal actresses that have taken their power and created their own empires, so to speak, their own production companies, to where now they get to make the films that they care about.
Mm-hmm.
And that are influencing the culture, and not just cool stories, because they're actually blockbusters too. And that's what matters in Hollywood is, how much does it make at the box office? And so women are proving we're just as valuable in that sense. And yeah, I think that narrative is more our narrative. Having grown up in the film business for the last couple of decades as a woman, I could certainly say I've been discriminated against at times, for sure. Although that could also be because I'm blonde. It could also be because I'm American. It could be because I'm tall, because somebody didn't like the car I drove. I've actually had that. So I think that, it's less because we're women. I think we're really interested in shifting that narrative and seeing that actually there are a lot of organizations and people out there that are wanting to support women filmmakers.
Mm-hmm.
And that we're really we're a big part of that, and that's where we're really pointing our ship and shining our light, is that it is actually happening. And there are a lot of women who are influencing media, and we're seeing the impact of that. Gina Davis's institute is tracking all of that, and the social behavior change that's having women behind the lens.
Mm-hmm.
So my question to you would be, how do you feel about that, Brie?
I definitely agree. I feel blessed to be a woman-led business. Somebody told me a statistic at the event we were just at, and I need to look it up to make sure, but he said that only 5% of the businesses in America are woman-run. And we were in a room of 2,000 women, and he said, if you're a business owner, raise your hand, and about 3/4 of the room raised their hands. So he's like, wow, look at the stats of just this room. And I was like, wow, only 5% are women. So I feel proud to be a woman-led, woman-run business. And yeah, I do think it's a mindset thing. My mind is using it as a complete advantage. I don't ever want to feel limited by being a woman. I more want to change that narrative by just getting people excited to see the art that I create and what Keresey creates too.
So documentaries come in all kinds of flavors. They come in all kinds of styles. Is there something that is like your favorite way to approach a doc?
Or our favorite way, is that what I heard?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a favorite way to approach a documentary, like one approach that you might like over another.
Yeah,
You
well,
know?
there's absolutely, it's always for the heart of the story. We're currently looking at a project in Morocco where we're going to go, and it's a local business that we work with here in Asheville, North Carolina, a brand called Arete. And the owner, Amy, is really keen on connecting the artists and the craftsmen and the people of Morocco and these goods that she's bringing back to the States to showcase these wares and actually get these people really good wages, and show that it takes time to create quality and like that story behind fashion. So we're listening for, when we sit in these meetings with her and we listen, and we're of course seeing the beautiful visuals and how we're gonna document it in that sense. Although a lot of our conversation is, where's the pulse of the story? Like, where does it hit us in our hearts?
And how do we make it visually stunning? I think that's definitely our our foundation. We both really love that visually stunning imagery. Even if it's an interview, whatever it is, we're wanting the best lighting, the best angle. Yeah,
Beauty.
that's our through line for sure.
Yeah, we use beauty to inspire.
Mhm.
And, I think really good artists, that's, whether you're a musician, you're a writer, you're a filmmaker, a poet, we're always looking for how can beauty motivate and inspire people.
And also the person that we film, one of my biggest things when I'm shooting stills is I want to show that person how beautiful they are. Because sometimes people don't like their photo being taken, and I'll show them the photo and they're just like, oh, you're so good. And I'm like, no, that's you. Like, I didn't make that, you did, and so that's just a really, yeah, I love people seeing their beauty.
Yes, that's a wonderful, wonderful way to approach. One of the questions I've always wanted to ask, I never noticed this until I started editing, and I'm a novice editor to say the least. But I started noticing it when I started editing that in filmmaking, at least with fictitious stories, they tend to tell they show the end of the story first. They always show a section of the end of the story first and then embark on the story. Why is that? Why do we have to see the end first? Like now it's so standard, it's just like to not see a movie's end first would be a shock.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, why do we have to be so uniform? Why is that? I know that that has to be a film school thing to make it capture someone's attention, but is there something more than that?
No, I think it's absolutely what you're saying. It's just to capture someone's attention. We live in a progressively, how do I want to put this? I mean, the film and video industry is changing rapidly, and we're actually hoping to kind of be on the front of kind of slowing it down a bit, because with social media platforms, everything is so fast and in your face, and people only have attention spans for about 5 seconds to capture something. So yeah, it's definitely not a way that we shoot stories, is showing the end first. But that's funny that you bring that up. We actually just watched a movie that did that.
Well, and I think it's partially, we could go back to Joseph Campbell, The Power of Myth. I'm currently reading that book. It's one of the 20 books I'm reading. And, one of the forefathers, I think, on storytelling that I can think of. I think it is also a storytelling technique. It's kind of like showing up at the party late and leaving early is a tactic. So that's a storytelling technique, is like starting in on the story so you intrigue people and you notice the person who comes in late to the party, and you also notice, if they're not there anymore. And so I think intrigue is what story and filmmaking is always looking for. How do we capture our audience's attention? And how do we keep them engaged
and wanting more?
Yeah, I think that's ultimately it. If we can give them a sprinkling of something that they're looking forward to. It's the gun on the mantle in the first act that is going to kill somebody in the third act. In plays, there's no mistake that there's a gun on the mantle in the first act. It's there for a reason. And I think it's very similar in filmmaking. It's like it's setting you up and there's that anticipation for what's to come.
Okay. Well, there's something that I want to address or ask in a kind way, but I feel really adamant. We get bombarded with media. And I understand that people are bombarded with media. And this whole idea about that people can't have more of an attention span than 5 seconds, 30 seconds, 20 seconds drives me nuts. Because the bottom line is that if I want to work with someone and they only have an attention span for 15, 20 seconds, I don't want to deal with you. I want someone who can focus. I want someone who can actually sit down, engage, focus, learn, critique, and can come back and articulate. Why is it that we're approaching the whole audience as if they're stupid? I'm sorry. Sometimes I feel like it's like approaching someone, you're stupid. Yeah, you can only have 20 seconds and then I've lost you. No, I'm able to focus. I'm
Yeah.
able to sit down and watch something and engage in something. And if I find it insults my intelligence, yes, I will turn. But if I find it intriguing and engaging and a topic that I like, I will watch it. So what is this whole thing all of a sudden? And I say all of a sudden, in the last few years that social media has had its blitz, that everybody is saying if it's more than 20 seconds or 5 seconds or 15 seconds, I've lost the audience. What is that?
Yeah, honestly, we're coming across that and we're getting, clients that say they only want, can you just make this 30 seconds? And we're just like, it's really hard to tell a really capturing story in 30 seconds. I'm like, that's more of an ad. And we're coming to that of like, how many clients do we want to take on that way? And it is absolutely social media. I don't know if it's ever gotten a hook in you, but the reels and the short, it's actually quite insane when you look at it and just what it's blasting and honestly what's going on in the body. I would love to do a documentary of physically what is happening in the body and in the brain.
Yes.
Intaking, all of a sudden you're laughing at a cute dog and then you're like scared at watching like a lion attack. It's crazy what's out there on the internet and what people can have access to. And I think that we are evolving in a really interesting, strange way with social media.
Human consciousness.
Yeah.
I think I love the question, and I love that you just spoke to it so directly. And Bree is definitely on social media way more than I am. I spend just a smidge on it, and she upkeeps our channels and things like that. It's a phenomena that I think the MTV generation brought about. And being in the film business for the decades that I have, I think I have the like length of time to see that happen, because it wasn't always this way. It used to be, well, 3 minutes, and before that it was 5 minutes, and it's just become compacted and compacted, and it's this flashy way of filmmaking. And it's interesting because they've actually done studies on this, and when we take in that much content per second, we actually can't filter it through our hearts any longer, and we can only filter it through our minds, because our hearts can only process so many bits of information per second, per minute. And so it's an interesting, I'm not going to like spout out a conspiracy theory or something like that, but around humanity's consciousness and how we're evolving, just to look at that from a sociological standpoint and to say, are we evolving in the way that we actually want to? Are we evolving our children because they're on it a lot? Are we evolving our culture, just in general, our society, towards a culture that is more heart-centered, and how to take in information, because our hearts are ultimately, all of us know, they're the best barometer for what we want to do in the world, not our minds. And the mind is, just to process information.
Well, you may not go there. I will go there, which is that it's an insult to my intelligence. It really, really is. In terms of the fact that I don't know who made up this rule, okay? Because we don't know where it comes from. Like you said, it was 5 minutes, and then it was 3 minutes, and then it's 2 minutes. Now it's down to 30 seconds. I find it very interruptive. Okay. And so if you cannot focus, then you are not thinking. And if you are not thinking, you are not processing, and you're not making good decisions, and you're not taking in all the information because you don't have the patience and the clarity to take in information. How does one study? How does one engage and become the expert?
They don't.
Yeah.
That's actually how one is manipulated.
That's the point. And
because they're running on impulse and on, that instant gratification.
Instant gratification, as if that's the norm, and that is not our norm.
Yeah.
And so, you know what? I really do push back on people who are in marketing that basically tell me I have to have something in 30 seconds or 15 seconds. And I was like, you know what? If I can't hold an audience longer than 30 seconds, I don't want that audience. I don't want that audience.
Yeah, I think that's a good barometer to have. And I think that then you will attract, just like Bree was saying, how many of those clients do we want to work with like that as well? There is we all, need to make a living doing what we're doing, and we do operate in this modern world. And so to a degree, engaging with it to understand it, I think, and to understand how the mainstream is interpreting media is important. Doesn't mean we have to go along with it, to your point, and to what Bree was just stating. And I think this is where it's supply and demand. You know, in order to stop that trend, we have to stop engaging it. And this is where films like Social Dilemma did have such an impact on the culture. And I think that's where documentaries, to circle back around, where our voices as content creators are so valuable, and where your voice as a writer and a speaker, and a spiritual guide are so valuable, because we do recognize the importance of the human spirit and the growth of the human spirit, and that this isn't a transactional existence, that we're here to, like you said, we need to learn and we need to grow, and we need space to do that. And I think it will actually feel really good for people to get out of that. And I think that I've seen a lot of like spoof films on the internet about like people when Facebook went down and like what happened to them, and they finally like they saw nature and they were like, oh my goodness. And it's just like, where's our culture headed, and where do we want to bring it to? And I think those of us that are innovators and forward thinkers in the culture, it's our responsibility and our privilege to help guide that. And I think we just get to do that with everything that we do, and others that get to listen and participate in that as well. This is an invitation for that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and I so agree with you in how you present it, and you present it so eloquently. And I've always been one of those people where somebody tells me, well, the rule of thumb is, and I was like, okay, who's made up that rule? And so that's one I push back on. Who made up that rule? And so when a framework is conducive to working for you and it doesn't fit into the mainstream of thinking, it's okay to embark on that framework. So, understanding we're coming up on an hour, I would love to ask you guys, what would you have to say to that woman who is looking at this podcast right now going, I've always wanted to be a filmmaker. This is fascinating conversation. What would you give her as a tip or a thought to basically say or motivate or inspire her?
Good question.
Honestly speaking, to any woman that wants to do anything, if film is your way to express yourself, if cooking is, if gardening, go for it. I feel like my life, if I were to lay it out in a story, I mean, we call ourselves Renaissance women, because I don't own that I can only do one thing in my life and that I've had to master it. I really rely on my intuition and my artistry to guide me, and it's allowed me to create beauty in all sorts of mediums. So I really think tapping in, one of my favorite things to ask people, and it's like I love asking strangers, whatever that means, people that I don't know, what do you love to do? Because in just that 5-second answer, I can tell where that person is at. A lot of people say, well, what do I do? And I was like, no, what do you love to do? And unfortunately, a lot of people say, oh, I've never thought about that, because they want to tell me what they do for a job. So I think the first question is finding out, what do you love to do, and going for it. No, I could talk for a long time, so I'll stop with that.
Oh, that's great. I love that. I think that for me, what I would tell any person, and specifically to encourage women in this field, because we do need more women in media, absolutely. So thank you for asking that, is don't let perfection be the thing that keeps you from putting something out. Because I think that men have long since in business, they'll put things out way before it's cooked. And we women were like, it's got to be cooked. It's got to taste just right. It's got to be beautiful. All my girlfriends have got to like it. Like, we fret over something way more than our male counterparts. And it can be really good because we're so detail oriented that when we do put something out, it is phenomenal. And I think men would agree with that. And I think we do need to take bigger risks and, be bold. And, we just were working on this project in Dallas, and we did a creative thing that was bold with one of the leaders of the organization, and it didn't work. And he said, "Thank you for trying." It was a bold creative risk. And it's like, we need to be able to, as women in media, be willing to call up Ava DuVernay. She's the director of 13th, and to say, "Hey, we love your films. How can we work together at some point? We plan on reaching out to Reese Witherspoon. Don't see anything outside your reach, and be willing to show up and do the work, and recognize that it's a journey. Every day is fun, and it's going to be challenging at times, and it's really worth it."
And I just want to highlight how excited I am for both of you. I have to share that you weren't called MsPearl Productions at the time, but the time that I had to share with you when you did my first iterations of Empower, Achieve, Succeed through Self-Mastery, and how I was nervous of being on film, and you worked with me all day, this beautiful place on the beach just outside of Santa Monica, and how beautiful an experience it was for me. And that I want to share with my audience, if you want to engage and if you want to go with professionals that are top, then you definitely want to entertain MsPearl Production. So I had to share, I couldn't hold that back.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you.
and can you let our audience know how to reach both of you? Bree, I know you bring a plethora of editing and experience together, as well as many, many other things. And those who might be interested in speaking with you, just share, whatever they're focused on, what would be appropriate to engage you with and what would be appropriate to engage Keresey with. Please do share.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think, the best ways to reach us are the typical social channels. We're on Instagram. It's MsPearl Productions. That's ms.pearl Productions, like the gemstone, PEARL Productions. And so we are on that pretty regularly, updating as to what we're up to. We love engagement. We love people reaching out to us and letting us know, what they're seeing, what they are excited about, if they have questions about things. And we can also be reached at mspearlproductions@gmail.com. That's our production email, and we welcome interaction. Our website is mspearlproductions.com, and people can look at our work there. We can be reached directly there. There's a little bit more of our backstory, some of our portfolio, and really where our philosophies are. And we really invite people to reach out and to see if we might be a fit to do work with them, and also if we can just offer a few inspiring words their way.
Yeah, and also we're fortunate to live together, to work together, and we really have this beautiful blend. So when you say reaching out to one of us, we're typically together. So you get both of us when you reach out to one, and it's a real benefit because, she has an expertise that I haven't, spent a lot of time in, and I have a vice versa. So
yeah,
whatever you need, whether it's editing or filming or storyboarding or website, like whatever. We're
really a dynamic duo, and it's something that had been missing in my life for a long time. And creating my own business was that partner who could meet me in a lot of the strengths that I wasn't super grounded in, for just that we don't carry everything in life. And so when Bree came into my life, and we were watching how, like she's saying, there was just this awesome enmeshment of strengths, and seeing how we really love to play off of one another and challenge each other, to think further, to be more creative, to get the shot that we didn't think we could get, whatever it is. And so, yeah, we would love to hear from your community and beyond, anybody who's interested.
Well, thank you. Thank you again. And I love having you here. And I just want my audience to know that this has been another episode of The Infinite Way, where spirituality meets humanity. And if you like this episode, then please do share, 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 subscribe. And again, we will see you for the next episode of The Infinite Way. Thank you, Keresey. Thank you, Bree.
Thank you.